Hey, what's up? It's me, Dr. Josh, and today we're talking about how to increase trust with your patients so that you can grow your office and have patients have better interactions and whatnot. And I want to share a little bit of research with you. This one is called Is It Me? The Impact of Patient-Physician Interactions on Lupus Patients' Psychological Well-Being, Cognition, and Healthcare-Seeking Behavior. Basically, how do people with autoimmune diseases get their first diagnosis, learn about their diagnosis, go through treatment, and end up? And I got to tell you, if you ever want to know if there's a problem between patients and providers in the area of communication, this single article highlights so much of the problem. All right, it's almost heartbreaking to read this article. I got to tell you, this article is by Melanie Sloan, Felix Naughton, Rupert Harwood et al. It's published in Rheumatology Advances in Practice in 2020. So it's a relatively new article. And it looks like it's out of England because I see a lot of University of Cambridge here and Guy's Hospital in London. So what's the goal here? The problem that this article clearly shows is that there is so much disbelief, there is so much dismissal, there is so much lack of listening to patients that goes on with autoimmune patients. And I use this because it's the highest form of the problem that we see within healthcare, which is this lack of communication between patients and providers in a way that makes the diagnosis more accurate, right? It makes it more accurate if we have that clear communication. And the further behaviors that can so simply be solved with technology don't occur, and this article highlights that. So here's a crazy fact out of this. Lupus is an autoimmune disease, right? And so many people got dismissed their first, their second, their third, their fourth, their fifth time going to the doctor with symptomatology. And the doctors would often say, oh, it's depression. Oh, it's something else. Oh, it's all in your mind. The average length of time for these people to get diagnosed was 7 years. The average was 7 years. That means some people were close to 10 years going through hell trying to get a doctor to believe them. So I hope that you are not one of those people that wants to go 7 God-blessed years to diagnose a patient and render good treatment, because treatment only comes after diagnosis. So here they were suffering through that, right? So as we look at this, there's a few things that come up. The patients would oftentimes highlight positive aspects, and then there's a chart. Let me pull that chart up because I think it's of interest here. So as you see this, they kind of have a continuum set up between positive, which is on the left side over here, and negative, which is on the right side, right? But let's go over some of the desires of patients in their journey with autoimmune disease. Number one, patients consistently talked about availability. They said rapid access to a trusted clinician was felt to be highly security-inducing, but it was pretty rare to find it, right? So availability is huge. We're going to talk about how to solve that with technology. Number two, belief in patient accounts. Said some participants felt their symptoms were believed, but others discussed feeling relieved when a positive test result objectified what they believed. The doctor didn't believe them until they saw the test result. So sometimes that proof was validation for those patients that felt dismissed, right? And one patient said, you tend to get dismissed a lot. You know, they say they want evidence. He said very clearly, I don't want to be found a couple of years down the line that I've misdiagnosed you or even spent money of the federal budget. So we want to get to that accurate diagnosis. And so the belief in patient accounts is huge. Number three, continuity and connection. They want to form a trusting relationship with a clinician. This is a long-term disease. They're never going to get out of it, right? It's never going to go away. There are so many chronic diseases, and this just highlights some things. Think about, I'm a chiropractor, low back pain. Once somebody has low back pain, the research says it's going to wax and wane, but it's going to be there for probably the rest of their life unless there's some drastic change. Anyways, the patient said that often created a feeling of safety with their physician, right? So we want to help support our patients in this trust environment, build that up. So it's availability, belief, and continuity. So how can you solve that with technology? Well, let's start at the bottom, continuity and connection. There is a huge problem in healthcare that we want to provide information, but information delivery and teaching and learning takes time. And so many people and providers are under the pressure of reducing the time spent with patients to the actions that can only happen in person. So again, I'm a chiropractor. The physical exam, palpation, hands-on treatment can only happen in the visit. But all the discussions about hydration, sleep quality, nutrition, supplementation, that patient education piece shouldn't be ignored, shouldn't be dismissed in order to just treat the patient, but instead, which of those two can we move to a technological solution? There's no technology I know of to provide hands-on care, but through a series of drip emails, so emails scheduled to go out every other day for a week, I could share a lot of information with a new patient. In fact, all the information I want, and it would be even more trust-inducing if we told that patient, hey, I'm going to send you a series of 5 emails over the next week. I'd really like you to watch them or read them and understand what I put in there. It could be a mixture of videos, presentations, PowerPoints, whatever you want to educate those patients. But that piece can be solved with technology, whereas the hands-on care cannot. What else? So availability. I think that's a great point here. If patients want availability of their providers, it shouldn't be in a way that overburdens the providers, but it should be used in a way to increase the experience of our patients and increase that trust. So how can we do that? Number one, every messaging system you use needs to always focus on two-way communication. Email is two-way communication. Phone is two-way communication. Text messaging needs to be two-way communication. I currently go to see a pulmonologist. They have one-way text messaging. I get announcements from their office. I get appointment reminders. I can't reply to any of them or get an answer. So that is not building trust, right? That is just a one-way communication. So ensure that your office is only using two-way communications. And if that's not available in your EHR with automated messages, check out TrustDrivenCare. We have software that allows for two-way communication. You also should make sure that you answer any questions that come through on emails. If we're having our patients learn about hydration, sleep quality, supplements, and nutrition, and we're sending out emails to educate them, why not answer the questions that come in? Because those questions would also be the best future emails to write to your patient base. The questions that keep coming in, like, can I do this? So as a chiropractor, can I play with my kids? Can I hike? Can I exercise? I want to empower my patients to exercise, but oftentimes they're scared because they think that they are fragile and in an injured state. And I want to combat that idea. I want them to progress and actively take part in their care. So have that availability. Now, two-way text messaging also allows us to answer a ton of questions very quickly. So there's research from a sales team that did research about text messaging. An active individual can maintain 60 to 80 text-based conversations in an hour, 60 to 80 conversations in an hour if they're through text. But the flip side, they can only handle 10 to 12 phone calls in an hour, right? So 10 to 12 versus 60 to 80, the decision's easy, right? So what does that mean? Now, you don't have 60 to 80 patient visits every day probably, right? Most doctors don't. But for example, my office, if I have 12 visits a day, can I handle all the questions that will come up from those 12 patient visits that day in just a few minutes at the end of the day? Well, of course, absolutely. And it's not hard to do through text messaging, right? Further, if you want to continue to feed that belief and continuity and connection as you're answering questions, it would be great to have a library of videos and coursework that you can send out to those patients to further answer the questions. So for example, if I get put on a new medication, how about a course, a short course that explains the medications used? An example for these lupus patients, right? They could send in a question and I could say, hey, that's a great question about the medication you're on and its side effects. Here's a video course we recorded all about that. Maybe it's 3 short videos that just explain how to take it, the side effects, and when to check in with the office for yellow and red flags based on the medication, right? Just answer those questions. That's going to continue to build that relationship and increase that continuity, increase that trust, and that will continue to help your office grow. Now, one thing that came up in this article as well is these people with lupus would go into support groups and they would read all about patients that were not being taken care of, that were being dismissed, and they would oftentimes recommend their doctor, right? So if you want your office to grow, provide a great service, and then patients that have been battling through crappy offices will refer their friends and family to you, right? Maybe you're a lupus specialist, or maybe you're a specialist in low back pain or yoga or whatever. But when that niche of people find you as their savior, they're going to send people. So how can they easily refer? I'll go back and I'll say that two-way text communication allows them to say, hey, I'm referring my sister. Her name is Linda. Please take care of her. Your front desk staff or you can set up the conversations around how to get Linda in there and get her taken care of. So all of those things are to help grow your impact, grow your office, and produce a trustworthy relationship with your patient. Now, I'm going to dive into a little bit more about this article because there's so much in here, but I'm going to cut this video off here. I hope it's useful. Leave a comment or a like below so that we can talk more about it. Thanks a lot. And if you're interested in our software solutions, check out TrustDrivenCare.com. Again, that's TrustDrivenCare.com. We offer communication, education, software for providers to have a wonderful, trustworthy relationship with their patients. I hope that's you. All right, we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.